They just have more loud voices advancing it. They are afraid it will work. Well, let me tell you about the unpopularity of it. When George Bush, he really did try to be intermittently a compassionate conservative. That's why he did PEPFAR, which he believed in, and he did this senior drug program. 66% of the American people were against the Medicare drug program. Way more than had come out against Obamacare. Because it wasn't paid for and they didn't know how it was going to work. And when it was implemented, there were horrible problems. Seniors couldn't get their prescriptions straight. All this, it was terrible. Not a single Democrat asked to repeal it. The members of Congress are trying to get their members, helping their constituents to understand it and how to make the most of it. And that's what the American people want now. They know it's not perfect. Folks, it couldn't be perfect. It's the complex eco-structure of healthcare. And the very bill itself reflected compromises. Half of the provisions Republicans themselves had supported before Democrats decided they liked them too. And then they weren't for them anymore. And so what the American people want us to do is have the members of Congress and everybody else that knows anything about this explain how the laws work, explain how they can make the most of it, identify the problems and fix them. That's what they want. But we can't go on insuring 84% of the people and everybody else insures 100, and spending almost 18% of our income on health care when nobody else is spending more than 12, and expect not to be killed for it economically. And especially when you're not getting better health outcomes. So, but you have to understand, there are two great political strategies here. I think they're losers. But one is to be able to continue to discredit the government to beat health care. I really think they're wrong about that. What they should be doing is fighting over who's got the best ideas to create jobs and raise incomes. And every Republican who did that would be immediately competitive in almost every congressional district in America if they had good ideas. So I think politically it's the wrong strategy, but that's not their strategy. And then they want to try to shrink the electorate to look more like the midterm electorate. And that's why in Texas, the only photo ID, state photo ID that's no good is one from an institution of higher education in Texas. And the only people who don't have to have a photo ID to vote are people who have a concealed carry permit. They get a pass. In North Carolina, they have a state income tax like we do in New York, and you get a tax deduction for your kid. Under this new law, you only get a tax, if your child goes to college in North Carolina, you only get the tax deduction if your child comes home to vote. And if he votes, or if she votes in the town where they go to college, you lose your tax deduction. This is not complicated. And it was really interesting because, to give you an idea of the impact of the voting rights decision, the provision that the Supreme Court invalidated with no evidence to support what they did. Their argument was essentially, look at all these states. They try to make it hard for African Americans and Latinos, and older people with disabilities, and young, poor working folks to vote. And they cut back on advanced voting times. They don't let African American churches take the little old church ladies to vote on Sunday before the election anymore. They did all this stuff. And damn if they didn't show up and wait in line 5 or 6 hours and vote anyway. So we did the best thing, and it didn't work. So therefore, you don't need it. But Pennsylvania did all of this too, because they had a big swing to the right in 2010. And the leader of the Republican Party in the House gave a speech saying that now that they had changed the voting laws, Mitt Romney would carry Pennsylvania. He didn't make any secret of it. And the judge hearing the case, who was also a member of their party, said it was really unfortunate what he said. But you have not proved that everybody who voted for this bill did it for that reason. In other words, you have to prove intent. Under the old law, you had to prove effect. So a Texas guy said the other day, one of their guys in Texas said, yeah, we're trying to make it harder for them to vote, but not because of their race, it's because they don't vote for us. In other words, and I love it. I like it when people come with candor. I think it's good. Really, I do. I have a lot of respect for that guy. know, just he manned up and told us. They voted for us, we pick them up on election day on Wednesday. And, so, what I'm trying to explain is, we're in a difficult position, but now, the president should put something on the table for budget negotiations long term. But he can't, he wants to wait to do that when he knows that that's what this is about. It would be really a violation of his constitutional duty to agree to put off health care or have it defunded or something. It would say that, because keep in mind, if John Boehner were to let everybody in the House vote today, they would probably vote to keep the government open. But if he did it, they'd probably fire the speaker. And you might not like the successor. So he's in a terrible position. A terrible position.